All right, gang, I've got another deep dive video for you today. We've got around 60 fragrances, and I'm focusing on the note of saffron. Are you a fan of this note? Do you enjoy it? Typically, you'll find saffron in a lot of fragrances that are considered leather. That's where I mostly find them. And of course, there's fragrances that also feature like rose. Rose and saffron is a great combo. So you'll find these kind of fragrances, but most importantly, lots of leather and of course ambers and woods and other spices together. So saffron is a note that I've come to enjoy more and more. And recently, on my very first trip to Dubai, I went to the souk there and I visited a saffron store. And it was a store that's nothing but saffron. They sell the different varieties of saffron there. They have saffron tea. But once you walk in, you can smell leather. So since saffron is used to create a leather accord, it's kind of a spicy, a bit fabricy, somewhat metallic. As you walk into the store, all I got was leather, and it smelled so awesome. And the thing with saffron is, when they're going to make a leathery accord from it, it doesn't have those animalic touches that usually leather has. So it could be something unique for you to try if you're not into animalics and you kind of like the idea of leather. Look up the note of saffron, and you'll find a variety of awesome saffron-focused fragrances. So as I said, I've got around 60 fragrances here. It's not a ranked list, alphabetical order, all time-stamped or chapters, and I'll tag as many of these products for purchase as well as I'm talking about them. So you'll see the timestamp come up with the actual product. So we're going to start off with Aesop's Gloam first, this one right here. Are you guys familiar with Gloam? So I recently did a deep dive video on Aesop's fragrances. If you are curious to discover this house, go check it out. Gloam is somewhat spicy leathery with the saffron, but it's also quite powdery, and it features mimosa flower and iris as well. So there's a slight metallic sharpness, and you can notice that from the saffron, but it's nicely balanced with the powdery almondiness of the mimosa, which also has a slight greenness. And then, of course, the iris creating a powdery touch. So this is a pretty nice start here with Gloam. I don't think it's one of the more popular ones from Aesop or Aesop, but I think it's a pretty solid fragrance. So check that out if you don't know it. The thing I forgot to mention about saffron, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a steel wool pad. Remember I mentioned metallic? Sometimes saffron reminds me that I'm smelling a steel wool pad, because when you smell that, you can smell the metallic touch about it. So that's sometimes I get that from saffron. So see if you can get that if you're, curious to learn a little bit more about saffron, and see if you can connect that metallic steelness of the steel wool pad. So let's move on to a favorite saffron fragrance of mine, real favorite. This is Affinessence Safran-Neroli. Really one of the most unique fragrances that I've put my nose on as a smell, and a great combination with saffron and neroli. This fragrance does fragrance themes that are like, this is the heart notes collection here. And typically saffron and neroli are heart notes. So this is the heart notes collection, but it's not only saffron and neroli. We also have tea here, davana, some spicy notes, floral notes. But I absolutely love the way this smells. It's so unique and so special of a fragrance. Definitely one of my favorites from this house because of the unique smell. You pick up the neroli. It's nicely blended with the saffron's spiciness, slight metallic touches, a little leathery. This is not too leathery for me, but there's definitely an underlying creaminess there as well. What a unique smell. I absolutely love this. It's just a very original smell. There's nothing out there like this. I've never smelled anything like this. And that's why this fragrance is so special. It might be an acquired taste for this one, but if you are in the market for if you're seeking out fragrances that are very unique smelling, definitely check out Affinessence Safran-Neroli. I think it's definitely one of the best. Now moving on to the house of Arquiste, it's Almond Suede. This was a complete surprise at how great it is. I absolutely really love this one from Arquiste. It's created by Khalees Becker. She did Love Don't Be Shy. In the end, this is a suede leather, but for sure you have those sharp metallic edges with the saffron in here. And it kind of complements the leatheriness as well of the saffron. I'm sorry, of the suede note that's in there. But there's also, of course, almonds, because it's called Almond Suede. And you've got, honey touches, orange blossom, and so on in here to create a slight gourmand but smooth leather, kind of spicy, metallic experience. Great smell. Great creation from Khalees Becker of Givaudan. And one of my favorite fragrances of 2024. I absolutely love it. And it's become my favorite of the entire house, actually, as well. Super awesome scent. Almonds and suede together, they work wonderfully. And the honey, there's a honeycomb note in here. It creates that sweetness in here. It needs it to create a slight, gourmand edge. And the thing with suede fragrances, the way they create suede fragrances are not like the way they create actual leather fragrances. Suede fragrances generally tend to go sweeter. And if you like the idea of leather and you want something sweet with it, look up suede fragrances. In fact, on the channel, there's definitely a suede video, suede fragrances, suede leather fragrances. So that is featured there. So you should definitely check that out. But let's move on to the house of Atelier d'Azur. It's Cuir Sacré, this one right here. So this is a woody, spicy take on a leather. Earthy as well. So I think the saffron in here is to provide its, crisp, cold, icy, metallic spiciness. And it complements the leather as well to push the leather further. But I feel like there's earthy notes in here for sure. There's vetiver. I feel like there's spices like cardamom. In fact, it also smells a little bit like papyrus or cypriol. And a little bit of patchouli is in there as well. Very masculine leaning, not feminine whatsoever. I think it's because of the types of notes that are in here. It's leather, it's saffron, not super animalic, but really a nice masculine take on the leather genre of fragrances with an overdose of spices. And of course, that's saffron. So that's Cuir Sacré from the house of Atelier d'Azur. Then we have another Atelier. It's Atelier Materi Ambre Papier. So paper, amber paper, papier. This is an amber fragrance in the end, but it's a leathery leaning amber. It's also an extrait de parfum, but this is actually quite delicious. In fact, between the last fragrance and this one, I much prefer this one because there is that signature amber style in here. With the saffron, there's a leather edge to it too. But it's resinous, it's a bit sweet, very spicy, kind of balsamic, a tiny bit smoky, and of course leathery. Really nicely done. The more I smell and come back to this one, the more I end up enjoying it. I mean, from that line of extracts, Neroli Hasbaya is my favorite. But this one's really growing on me quite a bit. It's got that slight leather touch, and it's not going full on leather, but it's hinting at leather. And the amount of leather that's in here from this saffron touches is just the right amount, Sometimes you just need a little bit. It's dancing with the overdose of the resins and ambery touches and providing a slight leather edge. But it's a lot of resins. Like there's benzoin here, there's myrrh, and those are what's creating the amber effect. But so awesome. That is Ambre Papier from the house of Atelier Materi. Up next, going to the house of BDK, it's Ambre Saffrano. Sadly, this is not one of my favorite fragrances. It's a Julian Rasconnais creation. It has grown on me a little bit, but it's not a fragrance that I, obviously recommend here on the channel. In fact, I did a video when that fragrance came out. There were a few other amber fragrances that came out that I didn't really care for some reason. And they were taking the amber into different directions and didn't win me over. I'm recommending it to you guys in case you want to try it. But it's saffron leather. There's resinous, frankincense kind of notes in here. Vanilla, and it's a bit fruity as well. I think it has plum. Unfortunately, like I said, it doesn't wow me. It's not an exciting fragrance for me. Something about it I think it's the frankincense in here. I don't know what it is, but sometimes you smell fragrances, you go, wow, that's amazing. This one, it's okay. Not a favorite. And I was hoping the plum in this would be a bit fruitier. It just doesn't come through as much. I don't know. Maybe you're a fan. I'm just not digging this one. And I'm a big fan of Julian Rasconnais creations. Maybe you're a fan. Let me know if you are. But that's Ambre Saffrano, saffron, amber. So it's a perfect and appropriate fragrance to feature here of saffron fragrances. But let's move on to another BDK fragrance, which I really enjoy. It's Oud Abramad. What am I doing here? Already got a strip in my hands. So Oud Abramad obviously has the word oud in the name. But recent discovery, it's not something that I've worn quite a bit of. But the way it's composed, it's super awesome. In fact, when I first discovered the house, I discovered the house when I was visiting Belgium. I don't remember if this one was already selling, but the brand had just launched. And one of their first retailers was this store in Brussels. And I enjoyed what I smelled, but the brand has launched some really awesome fragrances. This one, I think it was launched at the time, but obviously when you're discovering a brand new house, you don't know which direction to go. But for me, this is quite spicy. The saffron, there's leather here. There's a little bit of spice from cumin, although I think the spice also comes in from saffron. But really nicely done. It's quite woody. It's not an animalic oud, but I actually like the addition of cumin spice with the saffron, which obviously this fragrance goes into a leather direction because of the saffron in there. Anyway, that's a really awesome oud fragrance from the house of BDK. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Up next, it's Bohoboco's Saffron, originally called Oriental Saffron. And obviously, you can see they've changed the name. They did a great job on this one. The saffron here is quite lovely. I think my favorite fragrance from this house is still Jasmine White Leather. But here, super spicy, very leathery, a little smoky, but it's hidden. I mean, there's some sweetness hidden in there as well to nicely balance the fragrance out and creates a really wonderful wearing experience. Their fragrances are all extrait de parfum or pure perfume and very long lasting. But I enjoy this saffron quite a bit. It turns the fragrance into almost like a suede leather, I should say. It's not like a super animalic leather, which makes it even giving it like a more cozy vibe. But very unique saffron fragrance in that it's woody, ambery, leathery, spicy. So that is called Saffron Now from Bohoboco. Let me know if you've sampled that. That launched together with a fragrance called Polish Potatoes. Polish Potatoes is also great. It's more earthy patchouli, but eventually I'll talk about that sometime very soon. But let's move on to the house of Born to Stand Out. We've got Dirty Heaven first. This is focusing on saffron with vanilla. There's some tonka here. For sure, there's ambroxan in this. Very powdery, dry, dusty, and of course, leathery, musky, sweet. It's not one of my all-time favorites from the house. This next one, I think, is really awesome from this house. In fact, it might be one of my favorite saffron fragrances overall. But I like Dirty Heaven. It's not like super wow for me. But this next one, it's a great take on saffron with a kind of a boozy experience. It's Drunk Saffron. This one also has plums, and the plums in here are really enjoyable. So the saffron, it's providing its spice, it's providing its metallic touches. The steel wool idea comes to mind with this one. But it's nicely balanced with fruitiness, booziness, sweetness. So it's leather, spice, metallic, boozy, vanillic, sweet, fruity. Just a really nicely done fragrance. I think it's Hamid Muradi Kashani, but I think out of the first drop of fragrances from Born to Stand Out, this is definitely one of the favorites. Really nicely done fragrance. The crispness of the saffron is balanced by the smoothness of, you know, the fruitiness and the vanillic sweetness and booziness. Great fragrance here, Drunk Saffron from Born to Stand Out. And the third and final fragrance from this house, Purple Stain. This is the fragrance that was the experience of, whoa, what just fell? The idea of wine. I think that's why it's called Purple Stain. This is also one of the extracts, so it's super concentrated. There's orange blossom here. There's saffron for sure. Very leathery. But again, it's very ambery too. It's not super animalic. Comes off a bit more suede-like, but you definitely have that crisp metallic edge of the saffron. I like that one, but I between the three Born to Stand Out fragrances right now I just spoke about, Drunk Saffron is awesome. If you're looking for a great saffron leaning fragrance, definitely check that out. I think it's definitely one of the best from the house. I really enjoy it. But the next one, going to the house of Bvlgari, it's Azaran. Are you familiar with this one? I actually did a video on this one a long time ago, 5 years ago. This is saffron leather black tea. This saffron is in your face with this one. Super saffron leather. But since they also feature leather here, I think the saffron is just enhancing the leather and giving its, you know, slight metallic edge, spiciness. It comes off a little, maybe a little simplistic. But I would say it's more for an acquired palate taste, I should say. I think Tigar is the winner in that collection. There's also the one with jasmine and patchouli, which I keep hinting at getting, but these fragrances have gotten really expensive. And I have other similar fragrances, but that one is also great. But this one is a bit more for an acquired taste. It's leather and saffron, and you can see the color here. This is saffron. The color is basically saffron to me. Up next, going to the house of Byredo. It's Black Saffron. So I didn't feature any Tom Fords here, and probably Tuscan leather and ombre leather and eau d'ombre leather do have saffron. I left them off. But this is kind of going into that Tuscan leather kind of direction. It's leather and saffron with fruity raspberry in a very Byredo experience. There's also violet here, which you can smell. There's some juniper. The violet is pretty key for Jerome Epinay creations. I mean, he created this, I believe, but I meant to say like overall for Byredo creations. And it's interesting also, you sometimes get some fruitiness from violet, and it enhances the fruitiness of the raspberry in this. It's almost like taking, I don't know, the way Byredo fragrances are created, they come off, even though they use like really dense notes, they do come off a bit fresh. And this is a leather, in the end, acts fresh to me because that's the way they're created, I think. And that's kind of the DNA of the line. And that's what people like about Byredo. Do you guys want a Byredo deep dive? I'm thinking of doing, I haven't done a Byredo focused video in a long time, so I'm working on it. Right now I'm working on a Dominique Ropion video. I almost did the video, but I ordered a few more fragrances, so I'm waiting for a few more, and that is definitely one that I'm going to do. There are a few other deep dives that I'm planning over Saturdays for, 100 fragrance videos, and I don't have 100 Byredo fragrances, but let me know if you're interested in a Byredo focused fragrance. But moving on to the next Byredo, it's Rouge Chaotique. Here we go with plum again. There's quite a bit of plum in this video. This is featuring plum. There's oud. There's also leather. There's the saffron, of course. It's interesting. I've got a table here, and there was some little lint that's the color of the crocus pistils, which is what's saffron. They take them off, and then, it's the color of saffron, which is kind of funny. But here, it's got a very Middle Eastern vibe. It's oudy, woody, leathery, ambery, and of course, fruity. There's some sweetness in there. There's some earthy notes. I like this one. Not oud like Middle Eastern oud. It's a simple, easy to wear oud. But, it's got some light funk thing happening with it in the way that Western ouds can, provide. The plum, and there's actually, I think, another fruit in there. It kind of enhances the fruitiness. And it's a nice contrast with the leather and the oud in that one. So that is Rouge Chaotique. We've got a fragrance from the house of Chopard from their Malaki series. It's Rose Malaki. This is a cheapie. In fact, I have a video on the channel of all of the Malaki fragrances if you want to go catch that video. But this is a saffron, rose, and woods combo. It's a favorite of mine in the Malaki series, actually. I enjoy this one. I mean, it's a designer level. I mean, it doesn't smell as wow as the Rouge Chaotique, which I just spoke to you about, and also the Black Saffron. But I think it's pleasant enough to have a kind of a leathery, spicy, metallic rose fragrance with woods. It might come off a bit simplistic, but sometimes you don't want complexity, The Rouge Chaotique is very complex. It's an extrait de parfum. But this is an eau de parfum. It's a pretty nice, decent fragrance. Up next, Electimus London, Trajan or Trahan. So you can tell this was inspired by... You can tell this was inspired by Baccarat Rouge, but taking that Baccarat Rouge-like DNA towards lots of fresh citruses, which is what I like. It's super sexy, because I always found that the Baccarat Rouge DNA was sexy. But to be contrasted with the citruses, it's different. But you can totally smell the oak mossy and saffron touches in here with all the freshness of the citruses, the zing, and the bite, like bitterness and this zest, I should say, from the citruses. So it's a nice fresh take on a summer fragrance with kind of a Baccarat Rouge ambroxan kind of DNA in there. So that is Trajan or Trahan from Electimus London. Up next, it's Ella K's Letter de Pushkar. I've spoken about this one on the channel a couple times. It's mostly an amber, but it's a warm, spicy, leathery amber. Let me know if you're familiar with this or the house. Created by Sonia Constant. There's a warmth about this. It's definitely an amber, so it's leathery, but warm. There's a warmth about it. I don't know why the movie, what's the movie? Dr. Zhivago. Do you guys know that movie? For some reason, that movie comes to mind with this fragrance, and I don't know if it's because of the name of this fragrance or what, but I always envision snow-covered landscapes and walking into like warm cabins and warmth and spices and maybe warm tea. You can have like some saffron tea or something, and it's near a fire, you're warming up, you know, it gets ambery. I believe there's a little bit of rose in here as well. Let me know if you're familiar with Letter de Pushkar. That's from the house of Ella K. And we're done with the first page. We have 4 pages to go through, and we're going to end the first page with Floral Streets Black Lotus. So this is also a Jerome Epinay. I don't know what's going on with this brand. Are they even around? I thought they launched at Sephora here in the States. It's a British brand, but I don't know. This is a pretty rough and animalic leather with an overdose of rose, and so it comes off leathery chypre. But the leather is definitely on the animalic side. You can also smell the metallic sharpness of the saffron in this. You really can pick it up. But behind it all, you've got funk in here, so be warned. This is a bit more daring. It's also very rough, the way it's blended. I kind of like it, but I find it to be... Well, no, I do enjoy this one quite a bit. In fact, I love the idea so much, I ordered it myself. But after I got it and tested it around, it does have a bit of a challenging time because of the roughness and the animalic funk, muskiness of the leather that's in here. It's leather and a saffron, but lots of rose. It's very, very rosy and also earthy. It almost acts like a classic fragrance. I don't know if that was the intention. The thing is, the name doesn't make sense to me, Black Lotus. I mean, black does, because, it's very dark, but that's the idea there. It's a dark animalic rose, leathery rose, I should say. But this next one, super awesome. We're in the next page. This next one's super, super awesome. Recently, I also reported on this. I've been doing these videos on special deals, I find. By the time I aired the video, this discount was already run out. But this is quite a pricey fragrance. Frederic Malle's The Moon, created by Julian Ruscanet. And again, I love this one. I don't really like Ambre Saffrano that much. This one I think is a masterpiece. It's oud leather, saffron, rose, and a lot of fruits here, and some incense. So I reported on this being, it was on sale, or it was at the discounter for $650 for 100 ml. and it's $9.50 at the suggested retail price. So it was really a great deal. So hopefully some of you got to take advantage of that promotion. And if I see it again, I'll talk about it. But stay on guard for any kind of promotion videos that I do. If I find that deal, I'll talk to you about it. But an amazing fragrance created by Julien Rascanet. There's a slight funk in this as well, but it's not as bad as the previous fragrance. The Black Lotus is really animalic. I think it's intentionally created, or maybe the oud that is used in here is kind of like that. So there's definitely funk there, but there's enough fruits here to kind of tone it down, to give it a bit of a nicer edge. But I find it to be awesome. This fragrance is super awesome. This is the Moon from the house of Frederic Malle. Up next, Kirsch from Headspace. Kirsch is referring to cherries. And so it's cherry fragrances and leather go hand in hand, right? We've got plenty of them out there. This is a cherry fragrance that doesn't smell like lost cherry. It's more like marinated cherries. So it has a more mature smell to it in comparison to something like lost cherry. But there's a lot of saffron in here. You can totally smell it with leather to contrast it. And there's also boozy notes. And Kirsch, I believe it's a liqueur with cherries. And so they're giving you the idea of that, and then they're blending it with leather in this case. If you're looking for a cherry fruity fragrance that's masculine leaning and more mature, definitely try Kirsch. I recommend it. All right, so that is Kirsch. Going back to a fragrance created by Julien Rascanet. It's Fidelis. You know, a lot of people were saying how great this fragrance is, and I finally got it, and I was like, it's good, but it's not super wow for me. It's really good, though. I prefer the Moon, but the Moon's price tag is also really expensive, so this might be a compromise. But this kind of similar. Like, it's got raspberry, it's got rose, which appears in the Moon. There's leathery touches, of course, the saffron. This also has some warm spices like nutmeg, amber, and coffee as well. I think there's definitely coffee here. I wouldn't say it's a bad fragrance. It's really, really great, but I don't love it as much as I love the Moon, I should say. But you can totally see Julien's, style here and the way he does fragrances. He does a lot of leather, and I'm assuming that's why he uses a lot of saffron. And he does fruity leathers, amber woods, quite a bit, but really lovely. Yeah, I take it back. It's actually really solid. But if I was to compare it with the Moon, obviously the Moon is so much more superior, but that is definitely pretty solid as well. Let's move on to Imaginary Author's Slow Explosions. So there was a fragrance that came before this from this house called An Air of Despair, which was saffron and musk, and it was one of the best things that I'd ever smelled. Really, really awesome scent. In fact, I might have a little bit somewhere in here, like stored away, because I didn't run out of it. So later, that fragrance became Slow Explosions. And it's pretty much taking the saffron, maybe the musk, adding rose, and adding apples to the mix. So you've got a crisp and crunch added to it. So you can identify the apples, juicy, crisp apples, against that kind of herbal metallic leather touch of the saffron. And then the rose. Who's a fan of this one? There's also cashmeran, so it's quite musky. It's really good, though. I think the combination of saffron and leather are saffron and apples are so good together. In fact, I kind of prefer it more than saffron and rose. There's something about the saffron saffron's sharp metallic crispness against the crisp juiciness of the apples. They work wonderfully together. All right, next we're going to the house of Initio. It's a Oud for Greatness. So lots of saffron. There's oud, there's lavender, patchouli here. Giving you a little bit of that Baccarat Rouge-like DNA vibe, but in a more oudy, kind of Western oudy, aromatic, spicy direction. For a while, this was so popular. Everybody was talking about it when it first launched. Was it like 2017 is when it came out? It was all the rage. I don't know how popular it is now, but it's, the oud in here is not like Middle Eastern. It's definitely very Western. And I think the addition of the aromatic lavender in here gives it a little bit more of a mass appeal. So it's trying to be a bit edgy, trying to be a bit like other popular fragrances, and then also trying to be calmer. But yeah, I think it had a huge following. I don't know how popular it is now. I like the way it smells. It's not one of my all-time favorites from Initio, but I like the way it smells. So that is Oud for Greatness from the house of Initio. Then we've got a fragrance called Jihan from Kajal. So it's oud, rose, saffron, lots of saffron in this. There's some earthy patchouli as well. This one actually has this very creamy consistency. But I think the saffron is pretty standout, very recognizable. It's got a very Middle Eastern vibe to it. It's almost like it's an oud accord that's kind of familiar. You're familiar with it, giving it a very recognizable smell. But then you've got your signature touch in here with the way it's blended with the different notes they're using. So it has a kind of a recognizable smell. You're familiar with that oud rose combo, but there's the addition of the saffron in here. And there's that kind of a creamy, soft kind of a base. Almost like amber, lots of amber in this. I don't think it's one of the more popular ones from the house, Jihan. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Up next, go into the house of Aesop Primordial. This is Saffron Superfluid. This collection of superfluid fragrances, the saffron's really great. The cedar is really, really awesome. This is also, like, the saffron is the star here. I mean, some of these fragrances, the saffron's not the star, but it's a pretty prominent player. Pretty standout note. Here it's very, very prominent. What I like about this, you really have that metallic leathery touch of the saffron. For sure, it's prominent. There's definitely amber and woods in the base as well. Some light sweetness, but there's definitely a little bit of fruitiness contrasted with all that kind of sharp metallic edge of the saffron. But the saffron is definitely the star here. It's what's running the show. It's providing its leather experience. It's providing its spices, metallic sharpness. And of course, contrasted with the fruits, it's a really nice, pleasant smell. It's kind of like a red berry, not an apple in this case. Saffron Superfluid, it's Aesop Primordial. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Up next, going to the house of Liquid Imaginaire. It's liquid or liquid? Liquid. This has loads of saffron. Lots of musk. This is very powdery. So it's a powdery, woody, spicy fragrance. And you also pick up a lot of mandarin. Like when you put your nose to it right away, the mandarin up top, it's almost like you're peeling mandarin and the smell is left on your fingers, hands. You got that right here. But then the saffron comes in. It's a little leathery, but it's not super leathery. It's a very woody, powdery, musky, which is an interesting combination. I quite like that. But what's really excites me with this one is how the mandarin smell contrasts. It's really good. This is a Quentin Biche creation. Actually, it's Quentin Biche and another perfumer, which I'm forgetting the name of. But definitely a highlight from this house, Liquide from the house of Liquid Imaginaire. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Do you like it as much as I do? Add a comment below. I've got one more laboratoire. I'm sorry, what am I saying? I've got one more Liquid Imaginaire. This is Saffron Mandarin. Saffron and Mandarin. Well, the other one had Mandarin, and you really, really so authentic smelling saffron. I'm sorry, Mandarin with a saffron. Here, you have Mandarin as well. You've got lots of citruses. It's not the same Mandarin that's used in the other. So this is a different perfumer, and I'm not really familiar with the perfumer on this one. But I do appreciate Liquide more, but it's not about citruses as much as this one, Saffron Mandarin, is. In the end, it's very juicy, very juicy. And with Liquide, I got more of the skin. And just imagine, like I said, if you've peeled mandarin oranges and that smell that's left on your fingers is the smell that's in Liquide. Here, you really have the juiciness of the citruses. Lots of it. There's citrus floral notes, citrus leaves in here with the saffron. And of course, it's leathery against all the citruses. Spicy, a bit sharp and metallic, powdery as well. I'm not saying this is a bad fragrance in comparison to Liquide. I prefer Liquide more than this, but this is also a really great freshie to wear during the summer months when you want the juiciness of the citruses, the freshness, but you want some substance in there as well with the saffron. So that is, I gotta move these things around a little bit. It's a bit tight here. But that is Saffron Mandarin from Liquid Imaginaire. So they came out with a lot of different fragrances in that collection. There are definitely some solid ones in that collection to check out. I think this is definitely one of my favorites from that collection of clear bottles with this kind of labeling. All right, next we're going to the house of Louis Vuitton. We've got two fragrances back to back by Louis Vuitton. This is Myriad. This is saffron, rose, and oud. And from what I remember when I wore this the last time, it did act a bit funky, a bit animalic. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The oud is on the funky side here. But it's really nicely done, I think. This one has a little bit of that kind of chocolatey poopiness that oud can create. And the next one also has a little bit of that as well. But there's a little bit of fruitiness, which I'm not sure what it is. And brightness from the rose. So I'm getting brightness from the rose and also a slight fruitiness. And I'm definitely picking up the Louis Vuitton DNA that Jacques Cavalier definitely applies to a lot of his creations. But the saffron provides the leather in here for sure. And it's spice. I'm not getting much of a metallic experience this time around. But maybe it's covered up by all the notes that are in here that are... Yeah, but the oud is a little poopy and a little chocolatey as well. So this is probably not for the faint of heart. Myriad. Let me know if you're familiar with it. It's one of the extracts. It's also quite expensive because it comes with this beautiful creation. What's his name? the famous artist, Frank Gehry. He just passed away also. So he did these caps. All right, the next one is also from Louis Vuitton. It's Nouveau Monde, a male-leaning collection fragrance. This previous one was unisex. This one is a part of the male-leaning collection of fragrances. This is also a bit animalic because it's got oud. But it's a really good one. To me, it reminds me a little bit of Gucci Guilty Absolute and Dark Lord, created by Alberto Morillas. I think the kind of notes that are used here, I don't know, did Jacques Cavalier work for Firmenich before he took on the job at Louis Vuitton? I believe he worked with Firmenich perfumers, so I'm assuming he worked at Firmenich. So maybe he has access to the ingredients at Firmenich for the fragrances, because this one does have a little bit of the Gucci Guilty Absolute DNA, which is created by Alberto Morillas of Firmenich. But of course, this is oudy, and it's a lot more animalic. It's very woody. There is a little bit of a chocolatiness, and it's got that kind of funk and poopiness as well. It doesn't have chocolate. I think it's cacao, but something chocolatey is in here. I got more of the chocolatiness from the Myriad, but I don't think that features any chocolate or cacao. It just came off or acted like it. This one actually, excuse me, this one actually features it. Let me know if you're a fan of Nouveau Monde. That is Louis Vuitton. I would say this next fragrance is definitely one of my favorite saffron fragrances. I don't plan on doing a ranked list here, but Saffron Sacré, love it. I love this fragrance since it was called Ingredients. And then I'm glad it was brought back. It's very saffron forward. And this is when you get the idea of the steel wool pad here. So it's very saffron-y, very spicy, but also leathery. There's ambery touches and woods here. And, you know, additional spices. I do get a slight fruitiness. Slight. And of course I get amber. And there's a little bit of a vetiver-like experience in there as well. But so good, so good. This is definitely one of the best from this house. For a long time, out of the collection of red bottles, it was Patchouli Magnetic. But that was such a polarizing fragrance. It was either a love it or hate it. You really had to be into patchouli to appreciate that one. And it garnered me compliments as well. Then I didn't care for the Hibiscus Mahajad. I didn't care for the Amber Chromatique. And then the Tuberose Astral came out. Really love that one. It's also super sexy. But this is also definitely one of my favorites. Saffron Sacré is definitely a favorite. But let's move on to not two favorite. Well, they have become favorites, but it's been a while now. These two fragrances are probably, well, they're the same fragrance. One's an extract and the other one's an eau de parfum. Probably one of the most popular niche fragrances out there. Baccarat Rouge 540. So it was the Ambroxan ambergris thing. There's some jasmine. And I think they have finally added ethyl maltol to the description on Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I never saw that description there. They also had listed ambergris before. They don't really list it in the notes breakdown now, so they must have adjusted their notes. Because you know it's definitely Ambroxan, which is supposed to replace the usage of ambergris, which is very expensive. But ambergris and Ambroxan don't quite smell alike. Maybe they might act alike. Well, they do act alike, I think. But this has become such a popular fragrance. And in fact, for me, I wasn't a fan. I just didn't care for the smell. It bothered me. It took me a while to, for it to grow on me. But I think it's one of the best usages of saffron. Super, super sexy. Very long-lasting fragrance. It has great trail sillage. I think this fragrance, probably not as big as how big Angel got, but the fact that you could smell a lot of people wearing it, and it's one of those fragrances that can fill a room, it's definitely acted like how Angel, when a lot of ladies were wearing Angel, acted like you could smell people walking down with Angel. And same thing with Baccarat Rouge 540. Again, it was not a love at first sniff. I think the ambroxan in this and the metallic touches bothered my nose. But eventually I got used to it. And then for a smoother experience, it's the extract version in the beautiful red bottle. This one apparently does go into a slight almondy direction, but of course both of them have the jasmine in the notes as well. This is smoother. It's also a lot denser. And for me, layering the two it's a great experience, because the EDP has the projection. I mean, the Parfum also has it, but it doesn't have a lot of top notes. So it takes a while for you to really start smelling the fragrance, because there's not much in the top. It's all about the heart and the base. And so I think because the EDP has top notes, it has better projection, I think. So the two together, it's the nuclear bomb. Super awesome. But once again, it's the ambergris ambroxan combo with saffron, the jasmine in here, the methyl maltol, is that maltol? Ethyl maltol is what it's called, which was used in Angel, by the way. Since we were talking about Angel, it was used in that fragrance. But yeah, those are pretty big usages of saffron here. They don't really go leathery, but they might have some leathery undertones. But I wouldn't call those leathery fragrances. More musky, amber woody. All right, next, going to the house of Mancera. It's Instant Crush. I am totally out of this fragrance. I got to get another bottle. This is also another fragrance that kind of had an inspiration of Baccarat Rouge. But of course, it's a different take on it. Lots of saffron. The amber woods are prominent. And the amber woods is what we're referring to, smelling or reminding us of fragrances like Baccarat Rouge. But there's some light vanillic touches here. There's some spices in addition to the saffron. So there's some zesty, zingy spices in here. But in the end, it'll remind you of Baccarat Rouge 540, but a Mancera take on it. Not identical. I think it's the usage of the amber woods in here will kind of refer back to something like Baccarat Rouge 540. But then after that, it's different. Definitely got to pick up another Instant Crush. Let me know if you're familiar with Instant Crush. I have a full review of it on the channel. But we are moving on to the next page, and we've got 1 page and 3/4 of another page left. So we're still at the M's, and we've got a fragrance from Marc-Antoine Barrois, B683. So B683 and Ganymede both feature saffron, and I feel like it's definitely offsprings of one another. B683 was the original. The brand launched with one fragrance. It's woods, spices, amber, and of course a lot of saffron going into a leathery direction, but also that metallic idea. The steel wool pad idea is prominent here. But this one also has violet. I think both of them have violet. And I feel like it's the violet leaves, not violet the flower. But really enjoyed B683 until Ganymede. Oh, I got the wrong fragrance here. It's Tilia. And that's definitely not Ganymede. All right, now I have the right fragrance. So yeah, B683 is, I think, the main fragrance, and I feel like Ganymede is an offspring of it, or a flanker, because they have similar notes or DNA, but they go in different directions. Between the two, I much prefer Ganymede. And I think Ganymede also is kind of like Quinton Biche's Baccarat Rouge 540. It's got a similar kind of following, but not as big as Baccarat Rouge does. And this features saffron for sure, violet leaves for sure, immortelle for sure. There's apples, crispness, leather, minerally, a little musky, but it's super sexy, I think. What do you guys think? I know there are Quinton Biche haters out there, but this is definitely one of his best creations, Ganymede. It's ozonic with the violet leaves. That's what it is. It's quite sexy, I think. What do you guys think? Add a comment below. Now, this next fragrance, I couldn't believe how sharp this fragrance was. It's not anymore to me. When I first smelled this, it really was piercing to my nose. It's actually called Crystal Saffron. We've been saying how sharp and metallic saffron is. And this is the idea right here, Crystal Saffron. When I first smelled this fragrance, I couldn't deal with it. It was, like I said, so super sharp to my nose. My nose couldn't handle it. Now I really love it. And I can totally understand it. There's a lot of ambroxan and a lot of saffron together. Also, the saffron is creating a leather effect. But I don't know, has it happened to you like that? Like, did this come off super sharp? It's still sharp, but my nose has adjusted to it and it has really appreciated it. There's a little bit of an industrial kind of smell under there, kind of like a greasy, oily. But I feel like that's coming from the fact that they've brought out like leathery touches here. It's quite leathery. But before that, it was like crystal, broken crystal. And I was like sniffing it or something, like really piercing sharpness. But now I find it super sexy. What do you guys think? Crystal Saffron from Materi Premier. And then we've got Falcon Leather, also featuring saffron. But again, this is actually a whoa. I should say the Crystal Saffron also is quite leathery now. It wasn't like that before. Like, my nose can really identify the leather, and this Falcon Leather, on the other hand, is a real leather fragrance. It's called Falcon Leather, which is quite smoky, spicy, ambery, a little bit like Babycat-ish, a little bit. But in comparison to Crystal Saffron, it's quite sharp and metallic, but smoky, greasy, oily leather. This Falcon Leather is much smoother. It's acting more like real leather, whereas the Crystal Saffron acts almost like pieces that are broken and they've put it together, almost like a puzzle. It's weird. But this one is super smooth, and again, it's also giving me a little bit of Babycat Vanilla Gloria vibes, but not identically, just the way it smells. But it's a good leather. Really wonderful. The cap on that one is loose. That's why it keeps falling. And it's a bit tight here. I've packed this table up so I don't have to replace any throughout the shoot of this video. So we've done Materi Premier. We had 2, and we also had 2 from Marc-Antoine Barrois. Now we've got 1 from Montal. It's Arabian's Tonka. It does have saffron. And this is also something that kind of hints a little bit at Baccarat Rouge, 540. But in the end, it's a Tonka-focused fragrance. It also reminds me a little bit of Intense Cafe. So, got all these different things mixed together to create this very popular fragrance for Montal. The tonka is there, the saffron is there, there's oak mossy touches, there's amber woody touches, there's rose. So it's acting a little bit like Intense Cafe. Or I shouldn't say it's acting like Intense Cafe. It's probably because the rose they use in this, same rose in Intense Cafe. That's why it reminds me of Intense Cafe a little bit with the mixture of the other notes in here. But it's a really awesome, solid offering. Arabian's Tonka, much better than Arabian's, the original. There's a few now. I think there's Arabian's Musk, which is quite good. All right, let's move on to Nishane. We've got 3 fragrances from Nishane. First of which is, this is Saffron Colonisé. So taking their original Colonisé, which is very fresh, citrusy, kind of eau de cologne style, here they've taken that fragrance and removed some notes and added other notes to it to create a bit more of a leathery, saffron spicy experience with some fruitiness. I think I got the wrong one. All right. Now I've got the right one. What I like about this one, the saffron is quite standout. I was going to say saffron is standout, and I said staffron. So the saffron is quite standout, and it's a nice contrast to the citruses. But remember, there's also fruitiness here, and the saffron's acting leathery, but this time it's a bit more like fabric leather. To me, saffron kind of creates either like a leather or more like a fabric. Like if you've ever worked in a fabric store, you've got that fabric smell. It's somewhat leathery, but not quite. It acts more like that here. But if you want something fresh with a little bit of a substance, for sure, Saffron Colonisé from Nishane. But we also have to mention Suede at Saffron, for sure. Suede at Saffron, yeah. This one, to me, does act like Tuscan leather. And the signature with Tuscan leather is the fruitiness, the amber woods in the base, and that kind of greasy, oily leather that Tuscan leather, or in this case, saffron, Suede at Saffron is known for. I think this version is quite good. There's also a little bit, I think this might have some violet. Is it true that it has violet? Because there's a slight cucumbery touch. I don't know where I'm getting that. But it's quite good. And then we've got a fragrance also from Nishane called Tempfluo. This is the Anflippo creation. This is more floral, but with the addition of saffron in it. This is also very sexy. I think there's like orange blossom, so it comes off a bit soapy. But there's leather, saffron leather in there against it to give it a kind of a sharpness, contrast to like mostly like creamy florals. Wonderful creation from Anflippo. So that is Tempfluo from Nishane. Up next, we're going to the house of Oman Luxury. It's Serenity. So this is a Pierre Negrin creation who created Interlude Man. This is quite daring, I think. Very old school, a bit vintage, also sweaty, musky. There's a lot of cumin in here. Leathery, dry and dusty, sweaty. I find it to be super sexy. If you like cumin in fragrances, of course, the leathery cumin, definitely try this. I don't think this is one that people talk about. I think because it's just, the cumin is quite daring. You've got to be a cumin lover to appreciate this one because it is really in your face. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Nishane's Spice Bazaar, now that I think about it. And Spice Bazaar is really tough to find. It's discontinued. It kind of reminds me of it a little bit. But this one actually, Spice Bazaar didn't have that sweaty funk. This one does have a sweaty funk. So that's Serenity. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Let's move on to the house of Parfums Marly. It's Haultain. Haultain, created by Jordi Fernandez. This is the color of, what is it? The color of Harrods, right? So it was launched as a Harrods exclusive. I think this is quite amber woody and spicy. There's also aromatic notes in here. When this first came out, I thought it reminded me a little bit of some fragrances from Initio. Initio never publicizes their perfumers. So has Jordi Fernandez created fragrances for Initio? I don't know. This has grown on me further. And when it first came out, I wasn't a fan of it. And I think Jordi also did a fragrance for Mont Blanc called Explorer. Which one? Is it the one in the silver bottle? I think he did that as well. And these two kind of remind me of one another. And I think because of that, I've kind of appreciated this fragrance more. But it's lost the saffron. I think there's clary sage and lavender here. There's like smoky notes or incensey kind of notes. Leather for sure. But this is not an animalic leather. It's more like a saffron leather. So that is Haultain. I love the color, and it totally takes me to Harrods. Then go into the house of Montri, and even though they don't mention the saffron spice, they mention spices. I definitely pick up saffron in this one. This is Montri by Parfums du Cita. It's mostly kind of oudi and leathery. But you definitely... Well, this one also has vintage vibes, but more like a chypre style, like rose and patchouli. But this one also has oud and leather. The saffron is prominent, but it's more mixed in with a lot of spices. And beyond all of that, what's that soapiness in here? Maybe it's the patchouli. That soapiness or the patchouli effect in this adds a very sexy layer. I think this is a tribute to her father. I think that's what it is. Let me know if you're a fan of Montri from the house of Parfums du Cita. But up next, going to the house of Pierre Guillaume, it's Spice-Matic 11.2. Are you familiar with Pierre Guillaume? It's this is like, when you put your nose to this one, it's like a saffron bomb. So it has that kind of leathery fabric effect. There's musk here, there's pine and those kind of notes, but they're not as prominent as the saffron, which is in your face with frankincense or like olibanum. So it's a bit smoky. But this literally smells like walking into one of those stores that sells saffron in Dubai. Like literally it smells like it. Because it has a lot of different notes. They're not as strong as the saffron itself. Like I bought a bunch of saffron to give as gifts to family. And when you open up the little box it comes in, it smells like this. Spice-Matic 11.2 from Pierre Guillaume. And then the last fragrance on this page is from the house of Prada. It's Ocean Le Parfum. So it's got Amber Extreme Saffron. There's oak and some citruses in here. I actually really love this fragrance, but I've kind of falling out of love with it. I think the more I wear it, the more generic it becomes, and I hate to say that because I really love it. Who's a fan of Ocean Le Parfum? The Amber Extreme in here is like amber woods. The saffron in here is leathery, but it's super smooth. There's no sharpness here. I don't get the ocean name, but I don't think it has to make sense. And of course, it's got the freshness of the citruses. It's a mass market, sexy men's fragrance, I think. This is Luna Rosa Ocean Le Parfum. Are you a fan? I think it smells great. It has great sillage, but I wouldn't say it's super, super potent like some niche fragrances can be. All right, we're moving on to the next page. So the next page, we're starting off with Reinvented's Lucid Dream. This is one of those oudi, fruity rose fragrances, which has a lot of fruits and, of course, leather and saffron. Very Middle Eastern vibe, but really nicely done. There's definitely, I mean, the color. I don't know if you guys smell in colors. This is the color I'm smelling. Maybe a little bit darker, but I think the color is like perfect because you're smelling red. The saffron is also this color. Have you guys had saffron tea, by the way? If you just drop a couple of pistils into hot water, it kind of turns into yellow. But the pistils are kind of like this color, a bit more purple red. I mean, the flower it comes from, the crocus, is purple, but the pistils itself are this color. Really nicely done. Very Middle Eastern, super spicy, fruity, rosy, earthy, woody, patchouli, and of course the leathery saffron. This next one we featured in a kit. It's a Cherry Punk Extrait de Parfum from Room 1015. And I much prefer the Cherry Punk Extrait over the original because the leather is more amplified. And they've also amplified the saffron in here as well to amp up the leather effect. This is also created by Jerome Epinay, who created this. But it's cherries, kind of sort of like Lost Cherry, but a bit more manly because the leather is super amped up. So room 1015 Cherry Punk Extrait in this special bottle. All right, going to the house of Thameen. It's Riviere. What's going on with this brand, by the way? This is rose and patchouli with a lot of saffron. But there's also leather, of course, and amber and oud. A bit like papyrus cypriol smell in there. Giving me like a very Middle Eastern effect. Saffron and leather are really working wonderfully together to cut through all of the other notes. Of course, I'm picking up a little bit of the metallic edge from the saffron. It's quite sharp. So that is Thameen's Riviere. Yeah, what's going on with this brand? I'm a bit lost. What's going on? I don't know. This is an extrait de parfum, as you can see. Then we're up to a fragrance house called the Harmonist. This is Sun Force. This is a musky amber that also has a leathery saffron. It comes off very peppery, spicy. It has a bit of a mass appealing kind of mass kind of fragrance smell. So not super edgy, but also super potent because it is a parfum concentration. It's acting bright, even though it has some darker notes. It's acting bright. It's not acting super leathery. But very peppery. So that is Sun Force from the Harmonist. That is pretty pleasant. But it does have a very, like, it smells like something I've smelled before, like familiar smell, like mass appealing smell. But next we're going to the house of Two, Thoo. It's Dear Karma. Dear Karma. This to me came off quite leathery. This is definitely really super leathery fragrance. Whoa. It's leather, saffron. There's it's kind of musky, and it has some light traces of rose. There's amber here. Not super sweet. More on the savory side of leather. But it has some sweetness to kind of balance it out. But I wouldn't say this is super sweet. It's definitely more leather, woods, amber, saffron spice, banana malic. But it's quite dark. That is Dear Karma. Dear Karma. Their bottles are really cool looking. Really love their bottles. And I was looking at my list. It looks like I don't have a fragrance here, but I've got 2 more fragrances before I have to pause and grab the other fragrance. But one of my favorite brands of all time recently, Nuit Nomade, and one of my favorite fragrances of all time recently, Jardin de Misva. This has saffron. This is like a Middle Eastern dessert with rose, rotter, almonds, saffron, dates. This fragrance is so delicious. I think I prefer the original over the extract. To me, the original is where it's at. It's got enough freshness that you can wear it when it's warm out. It's also a bit tart that I enjoy the tartness and the heat. Just the right amount of everything in here. The rose, the saffron. You can smell the saffron. It's a bit metallic, but also a slight bit leathery. The almonds and the dates provides a little bit of a sweet gourmand edge, but this is not a gourmand fragrance. Just like a beautiful Middle Eastern dessert with dates and saffron and almonds and rose water. Gotta make sure to include the rose water. Super awesome scent. If you guys don't know this one, you must try it. It's so good. That is Jardin de Misfa from the house of Initio Oud. Then they do have a saffron fragrance, and it's also called Silver Saffron, so it's super metallic. And this is part of the Extracts collection. It's a brand new fragrance, not a fragrance that's been converted to an extract from an EDP. So this launched brand new. This is super sharp, honestly, guys. But there's a amber here. There's a little sweetness with fruity notes. It's a bit powdery, but the idea of silver saffron is appropriate. Silver, metal, metallic, saffron. And it does go a little leathery, but I think they've brought out the metallic side a bit more than the leathery side of the saffron. Very crisp. Anyway, that is Silver Saffron. Let me know if you're familiar with that. All right, up next, going to the house of Wilhelm Perfumery. It's Faces of Francis. Fragrance created by Bertrand Duchaufour. Very interesting combination of notes. It's got oud, saffron, pistachio, styrax, ambergris. So it's leathery. This one's more leather, not metallic. It's a bit smoky because you've got that styrax. And oudy, but not animalic. There's a familiar smell in here. Every time I smell this, it reminds me of something that I've smelled, but I can't pinpoint what it is. And that's kind of what I like about it. The fact that I'm reminded of something, but God knows what it is. But, of course, the saffron is acting leathery here. It's a nice contrast to the oud. I think the oud and leather go really hand in hand. So this does come off a little bit Middle Eastern also. It's a pretty potent fragrance from Wilhelm Perfumery. This is Faces of Francis. Now, I thought that Jerome Epinay was doing all of their fragrances. I think maybe early on he was, but I think they've branched out to working with other perfumers. So this is, again, Wilhelm Perfumery, Faces of Francis. Let me know if you're familiar with that one. I'm going to a house that I don't speak much about. It's an Austrian house called Wiener Blut. You guys know it? And this is Palais Nizam. So somebody was visiting California in like San Francisco probably 12 years ago, 10 years ago, and had a bottle of this, and I smelled it and fell in love with the way it smelled. And I've been wanting a bottle of this since then. And early last year, while I was in Austria, in Vienna, I bought a bottle, and it is a brand that I'm not too familiar with, but the smell itself is so sexy, so super sexy. It's leather, it's boozy, it's fruity. So it's a leather that's boozy, fruity, with the saffron, that's, you know, that metallic saffron. But it works really wonderful together. Super awesome. I love this one. This also gives me scent memories. I I'm reminded of something from the 80s that I can't pinpoint. I'm going to wear this one, actually. I brought it last year and I haven't touched it. Yum. So familiar. I don't know what it is. You guys familiar with this? Are you guys familiar with this brand? Wiener Blut? Do add a comment below. I bought this from what's the name of the perfume shop in Vienna? Osmoteca? I think it's called Osmoteca, or yeah, Osmoteca. Anyway, let's move on to these two fragrances, Babycat and Vanagloria. Of course, you know these two. I've talked quite a bit about them, quite a lot about them, I should say. And they're, in the end, leather fragrances, and they also have incense spices and peppery spices. So, and the saffron in here just amplifies the leather and spice together. They're very close, almost identical, but there are some minute differences, and I can't remember. But what I like about them is the churchy incense contrasted with the vanilla. And of course, you've got the leather, you've got the saffron, and the frankincense olibanum. Now, the Babycat label has changed. Some people are saying it's different smell, but according to the brand, it's the same. It's just got a facelift. So I don't know what the deal is. I haven't really compared it, except that one day in Europe, in passing, I smelled it, and I felt like it was very similar to the original. So I don't have it to compare it. Maybe I'll get it, but I still have this. Maybe in the future. But if you've compared this version to the new version, it's something bourbon on it. Let me know what you think. Are you a fan of this? Do you get the saffron? The saffron adds that kind of minerally metallic edge. The whole fragrance is dry, and vanilla is definitely smooth and kind of syrupy, but I think the kind of notes that are in here dry that syrupy effect. But I love that DNA. I was a big fan of incense for a long time. I was wearing quite a bit. I got bored of it. It kind of became very one-dimensional to me, just smoky, woody, not so sweet amber. And I kind of like the idea of sweeter incense fragrances. In fact, there's a video on the channel of sweet incense fragrances. If you're curious, check that out. So that's why I like these two fragrances. But I also really enjoy Oman Luxury's Royal Incense, which is the honey and incense combo. So I kind of like this, like taking sweeter notes against the kind of cooler, smoky notes of incense a lot. So we have two fragrances to end with from Xerjoff, both of them featuring saffron. First of which is Black Moonlight. Are you familiar with Black Moonlight? The Duran Duran fragrance. This is a dark, smoky amber, but lots of saffron and cardamom. It's not sweet, it's smoky, and I think the name Black Moonlight fits it perfectly. I think I prefer this fragrance once the cardamom starts taking effect. Before that, it's a bit bitter. But once the cardamom comes in and everything kind of like mixes, then the fragrance becomes really, really great. But the initial blast challenges me a little bit. Not challenges me like I can't wear it. I just don't love it as much as when it's kind of developed. That's Black Moonlight from Xerjoff. And then the last fragrance is Torino22. I've spoken quite a bit about Torino21 because I absolutely love it. I haven't spoken much about Torino22. It's different than 2021. Kind of a similar idea, but different notes for sure. It's a lot of saffron. There's spices that like green notes, aromatic notes, camphor notes. I prefer the Torino 21 much more than Torino 22, but there's a sexiness about this one. It's a bit more mass appealing, I think. Although Torino 21 is also very mass appealing, this to me does have a little bit of a men's designer signature. Whereas the Torino 21 is more like maybe an Acqua di Parma-like fragrance, although Acqua di Parma made one called Buongiorno, which is kind of similar to Torino 21. So that's why I kind of connected it. But I feel like Torino 22 is a bit more like mass appealing men's designer fragrance. I'm not saying it's men's designer, giving me that kind of an idea. I think maybe because it's got clary sage in the notes. But what do you guys think? That's Torino 22. And that's the last fragrance, guys, of all of these saffron-focused fragrances. Now, there might be some fragrances that I've left off accidentally or just didn't have enough room. And I kind of wanted to do a video of around 60 fragrances rather than another 100. So as I'm kind of doing more of these deep dive videos, I'm realizing Saturdays are the days for the 100 list fragrances, deep dive videos. And then during the week, it's less because otherwise it takes a long time to prepare them and shoot them. And since I've got a big project that I'm working on, which I will announce very soon, it's taking off a lot of my time and having a difficult time to shoot long form content often. But don't worry, I'll continue doing deep dives. Of course, as I said, I do have the 100 fragrance deep dives on Saturdays, so we'll have one this coming Saturday. But let's get back to the saffron fragrances. What do you like that I've talked about here? Which are your favorites? If I was gonna do a ranking, it's going to be a bit difficult. For sure, the Affinessence definitely has to be on the list. The Almond Suede definitely has to be on the list. The Ambre Papier definitely has to be on the list. The Saffron from Bohoboco has to be on the list. The Drunk Saffron has to be on the list. The Moon has to be on the list. L'Eau Primordial Saffron Superfluid has to be on the list. Liquide has to be on the list. It's so good. Saffron Sacré has to be on the list. I have to mention Baccarat Rouge on the list because it is really good. But, you know, it's much older. Crystal Saffron has to be on the list. Ganymede has to be on the list. And Jardin de Misfa has to be on the list. Palais Nizam has to be on the list. Cherry Punk Extrait has to be on the list. And of course, these two, Babycat and Bona Gloria. So those are the ones that I would pick to rank in a list, but I'm not going to rank for you here today. But just know that I really, really love those fragrances as far as saffron fragrances go. So let me know your thoughts on these fragrances that I've spoken about today. Are you a fan? Is there something missing that I should get my nose on? Add a comment below. Let me know what it is. Of course, as I always mention, I don't have every single fragrance in the world. So I put these videos together with what's available in here. Sometimes I do buy fragrances to add to my lists videos, and so I didn't buy anything specific for this video, unfortunately, because obviously it would have grown to be a lot bigger list. But do let me know what's missing. Add a comment below, and thanks so much for watching today's video. So if you want to watch more deep dive videos, I do have a playlist on the channel, and I've added all deep dive videos there, so you can click and watch them back to back without any interruptions. And also, if you have the ads removed on YouTube, which I do, it's a great way to enjoy content and without any interruptions, which is great because I watch a lot of YouTube. I never watch fragrance content. I watch other things, but I have it removed so I don't have to like be interrupted with the ads. And for these long form videos, it's great to have that removed, and you can watch them without interruptions, as I said. But do let me know what's missing. Add a comment below. Last but not least, I do have that new Shorts channel that I would love for you to go subscribe to. And once I get to the 1,000 subscriber mark there, I'll start posting content. We're at around 650 subscribers, so only, about 350 more to go, and then I can post content there. And as I've been mentioning, I will no longer post Shorts content here. In fact, I haven't posted since the end of October. And now that the channel's back to normal, I am moving Shorts content there. And then in the future, I'm also going to move another type of content to another channel. But more on that later when I announce my project and all the changes here. But I would appreciate it if you go subscribe to the Shorts channel. And once I get to the 1,000 subscriber mark, I'll start posting content there. Anyway, thanks so much for watching today's video, guys. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel as well. Like the video, share it, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.